Hey guys, it's me Suja over here. Welcome back to another video. So on this video, I'm going to be talking about why teaching English in Vietnam is not the best option for everyone. So if you're new to my channel, the name of my channel is called as Sujoy in Vietnam. I've been living over here for over 6 years now. I was an English teacher for 3.5 years, and then I started my online digital marketing business. And I'm also a full-time YouTuber. So if you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about this topic because I taught English for a couple of years here in Vietnam. So I just want to talk from a teaching point of view, from a teacher perspective point of view, as a non-native teacher. Just having a bit of my morning coffee. Right. So yeah, I mean, you see on YouTube, a lot of videos and a lot of YouTube shorts about why you should go to Vietnam to teach English or why you should become an English teacher in Vietnam. But there's a dark reality to it, okay, which not many YouTubers actually talk about it. So I just thought of taking this time and just talking about this topic. So you decided to, you're an expat and you want to come over to Vietnam to be an English teacher. That is perfectly cool. Now, like there are certain institutions, teaching centers over here that do provide you teaching certificates. Like I remember I got my TESOL teaching certificate. Um, uh, if you are planning to come to Vietnam to teach English, it is a requirement for you to have a bachelor's degree and also a teaching certificate. Now, you can actually acquire the teaching certificate online, but I highly recommend you do the offline classes. So what I'm trying to say is come to Vietnam and maybe do a 4 weeks intensive teaching program to certify yourself to become an English teacher, and then getting your TESOL teaching certificate or your TEFL or I believe a CELTA. I don't know much about those because I got my TESOL. So I had a 4 weeks of intensive training teaching program. Okay. Now, mind you, if you're doing these offline teaching programs, to certify yourself to becoming an English teacher, these are expensive courses. Okay. Like I remember I had to shell out like 1,600 US dollars for doing the course. Did a bit of down payment, and when I came to Vietnam, then paid the remaining installment. And it was a very intensive course, but the quality of the quality from the mentors which I received, the teaching quality which I received from my mentors, they're like highly experienced teachers, was just amazing, and a lot of in classroom activities. Then also you had to do a lot of simulated teaching, and also go to various different schools to do some teaching observations and also to do demo teaching, right, for those schools. So that was all great. Okay, that was all great. Now, from my personal experience, I finished off that. I remember like I and two of the I and two other people in that training program, like they were like non-native teachers. um, so all the other people, like they were all native, they're all coming from the west, or they're like from native speaking countries. So like you have this thing like guaranteed teaching jobs. Okay, so you finish the teaching program, you get a guaranteed teaching job right away. So actually, that didn't happen for me in my case, because since I was coming from India, although I have an American bachelor's degree from U.S. college, and I have an American neutral accent, but the fact that I was coming from a non-native country, and of course, majority of people in India do speak English. So, uh, but I remember I had to wait for more than a month to get into a public teaching job. That was assisted by my by the teaching program, by the teaching institute from where I graduated. But all of my remaining classmates, like who were native teachers, they just quickly got into these top reputed centers out here in Vietnam. Less than a week. I mean, I think it was like 3 days, or within 4 or 5 days of them completing the TESOL program, they immediately started getting a lot of job offers. Okay, so yeah, so the first one is, um, if you're not coming from a native speaking country, you're gonna have you're gonna have a lot of difficulties securing an English teaching job over here in Vietnam. I believe Hanoi is a bit more lenient when it comes to hiring non-native teachers, but if you're planning to teach out here in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City, it's going to be very challenging for you, because as far as I'm concerned, most of the like non-native teachers, they go to faraway cities to teach English in some public schools or some small time centers, because it's going to be very, very difficult for a non-native teacher to get a proper English teaching job downtown city. So I can talk about Saigon, and if you're looking to get a teaching job somewhere in Da Nang, like other parts of Vietnam, like Da Nang or maybe Net Chang and all that, it's going to be very difficult for you because, firstly, they don't have a lot of teaching opportunities in those locations. So the best options would be for you, if you're a non-native teacher, would be Hanoi. And also you can try out Saigon, but it's going to be very difficult for you. So let's just talk about the points. The first one would be the salary. I remember the salary is going to be around $16 to maybe $18 per hour. Tops like $20 per hour if you're a non-native teacher. If you're a native teacher, I think the salaries would be a bit higher, would be like $20 to $25. I mean, I presume it's going to be like $24 to $25 per hour if you're teaching in public schools for native teachers. The other point which I want to cover is lack of benefits. Okay, so not all schools here in Vietnam would provide you, housing, accommodation facilities, health insurance, and other forms of insurance or relocation services. Okay, these are actually provided by top reputed language centers out here in Vietnam, because I know the fact that there are some top reputed language centers. I won't name them, but there are teachers who are flying from the States, who are flying from Europe, and they are, they get all these benefits. They get their flight tickets are booked by these teaching companies. So everything is taken care of, but it's not practiced by all schools out here in Vietnam. So don't expect all the schools and all the language centers out here in Vietnam to provide you housing allowance, relocation services. So you'll have to keep some backup money with you, like maybe like 2 grand with you. If you want to shift to Vietnam to teach English, but you got to pay for housing, you got to pay for your you got to pay for your food expenses and all that. So till the time you get your first salary. Okay, so lack of benefits. Okay, the third point would be limited career advancement. Okay, now the new thing which is going on over here is, if local people, like most Vietnamese, like if they hear that you're an English teacher, yes, you do get a lot of respect. But now the whole narrative is that if you're an English teacher, maybe you're teaching English because you need the money, right? So now coming back to lack of career advancement would be, teaching English is not a long term career. Okay, it's a very short term career. I have known many English teachers, when I used to teach schools. Like they were like quitting every month, or they were ghosting the schools or ghosting the language centers. Like they would not show up. They would just take the money and then they would run away because they need the money or something like that. So now the stereotype, like what's going on is like teaching is not like a long-term solution. It's a very short-term solution, and that's the reason why you'll find a lot of these teaching websites, every day, like if you go to Vietnam Works, which is a big teaching website for hiring expat teachers, every day, they need a lot of English teachers. And you have all these top language centers. I won't name them, but like every day, they're looking for a lot of teachers to be recruited because the retention rate is very low. Okay, so like teachers are coming, teachers are going. They may not be happy with the working environment, like long working hours, doing overtime teaching, long teaching hours. Maybe the classroom facilities are bad. So yeah, so basically now teaching has become like a short-term career. It's not like a long-term career anymore. So don't get me wrong. There are a few teachers who have been teaching out here in Vietnam for many years. They're sticking with a couple of schools, language centers, because they get the right benefits, right perks, okay, from these schools and language centers. But that's not the case with all the schools out here in Vietnam. Now, let me talk about the long teaching hours, okay? Uh, I remember when I would be teaching a classroom, in a public school where you got 50 students, and that's the reality. There's no forget about having air cons. Maybe the fan is not working. You're sweating around. You're wearing the teaching. You're wearing your shirt, tie. You're sweating around using the chalk and the blackboard. It gets very hot in the classrooms, okay? And like after 45 minutes of teaching, then you got to hop on to another class, okay? So like usually like in the morning, you may have to take 2, 3 classes. Maybe you start your class around 7:30 in the morning if you're teaching in a public school. Maybe you go to cover like 2, 3 classes in the morning and then take a break. Then you have a break time. Then again in the afternoon, you'll have to cover like 3, 4 classes. It just like overtime, long teaching hours, and you just get burnt out. Like I remember public schools, like they would be operating from 7:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And I mean, I would be covering so many classes, and doing so much of substitute teaching, because some of the teachers they would not show up, so I would be doing substitute teaching. Hot classroom environment, a lot of noisy kids, and it's just that it becomes very challenging. Like and you feel like it feels like teachers are being used like numbers. Okay, the schools are using foreign teachers like numbers. Just teach, don't worry about, they don't care about the quality of the teachers teaching. So yeah, so that's something which may not be suitable for all expats who want to teach English out here in Vietnam. Okay, so long teaching hours. Okay, next point would be the hiring discrimination. Yes, you do have hiring discrimination out here in Vietnam. If you go to these top websites for teaching recruitment, majority of the time they would be looking for native teachers coming from specific countries, namely US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Of course, South Africa was not in the list, a few years back, but now that's been included. And of course, it's very important how the teacher looks, like the appearance. If majority of the teachers who get recruited in schools out here in Vietnam and in language centers here in Vietnam are usually native teachers. And I don't want to be racial, but if you're a white person, like you have white skin, you're a Caucasian person, they will hire you. It's chances of you getting hired in these teaching jobs is going to be much easier compared to someone who's having like brown skin or black skin, a person of color. Even though he or she's from a native country, it's going to be challenging because most of the schools out here in Vietnam, they prefer hiring white teachers because that looks more appealing for the parents of the students when they know that their teacher is having like a white skin, is a Caucasian person. So that's the reality. Okay, it's grossly very segregated. Okay, so you will have a lot of hiring discrimination. Okay, Then the next point I want to talk about would be lack of legal protection. Okay, so you're an expat teacher coming out here. Um, Even if you feel like you did something right in the school and that student was wrong, or maybe you have some conflicting issues with your teaching assistant, or majority of the times the TAs, they may not assist you with your teaching. Maybe they will be just like sitting at the back, and they'll be just checking some marks, or not very assisting. I mean, this is from my personal experience, but say for example you have some kind of complication with the school, or maybe with some teaching style. Maybe you want to incorporate some teaching style, or you have some issues with the TA, or with one of the school staffs, or with one of the students. You may not get that kind of protection. Okay, chances are they may ask you to leave that school, or your contract may be terminated. So it's kind of like the law is with them, so there's like favoring them. So you got to be so lack of legal protections. Okay, and it's very easy for expat teachers to get blacklisted out here in Vietnam. If you like, say for example, you signed a contract with a school and you decide you changed your mind, you don't want to continue with that, or they can easily go to they can easily blacklist you as a teacher, and like that database is being shared with all of the schools and language centers around here in Vietnam, so they know that if that teacher is coming for an interview, he or she could be blacklisted or something. So it's very easy getting blacklisted over here in Vietnam as an English teacher. So be very mindful of that. Um, then the next point would be difficult work permit procedures. So now it's kind of, as times have changed, it's become more difficult to acquire a work permit. If you're coming, you need to get your document, your teaching, your degrees attested from your home country. That is very important. So since I had a US degree, I got it attested from the US consulate over here in Ho Chi Minh City. I believe I had to pay some $55 for the attestation. But I highly recommend you get that attested from your home country. Then you got to get a criminal record clearance done from your home country. And I believe from here, from Vietnam, but I think it's from the home country, which you need to do. So make sure you get all your paperwork done and legalized and attested before you come to Vietnam to start teaching English, because that can be a nightmare. And I think the work permit procedure in general here in Vietnam for expats, is becoming much more difficult to obtain. Um, the last one would be no support from lack of support from school. Okay, so maybe you may not get that kind of assistance from your schools. I'm not talking about the top reputed language centers out here in Vietnam, but there are many schools over here. Maybe they may not provide you that kind of support in terms of like accommodation, or maybe you want to get some advance payment, or there are also a few schools I've heard where they don't pay teachers on time. And usually, like when you get your teaching salary is like on the 5th of every month, or 5th to 10th of every month. I mean, it's very rare to find some schools paying at the end of each month, unlike in other countries. But usually here in Vietnam, they usually pay around the 5th till the 10th of every month. But there have been horror stories by a few language centers who had stopped paying their teachers for a couple of months. So, and just we're using them like numbers. So yeah, I mean, that's the reason why teaching English in Vietnam is not the best option for everyone. So make sure to comply with get all your degrees attested prior to coming out here to Vietnam to teach English. And of course, for non-native teachers, like even if you're coming from India, or if you are coming from Africa, it's going to be very difficult for you getting an English teaching job. So trust me, I've been there. I've been living here for many years. I've been teaching English for many years out here in Vietnam, so I know what I'm talking about. So this is like the reality. Okay, so if you found this video to be insightful, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And also, if you're traveling around in Southeast Asia, you want to start a successful passive income online business, you can check out my income stream site. I'm keeping the link down in the description below for you to get started. So with that being said, you guys have a great day. This was me, Sue Joy. Peace out.